Hi, so for my purpose scenario that's called What's the Point, I'm going to investigate the differences between different Pointe shoes and different Pointe shoe companies and what they do to make their shoes different and make sure it fits the dancer's needs. And since I've been dancing for a really long time, I figured this would be a great scenario for me because I could learn and make a more educated decision on my shoes that I'm wearing every single day, and so that it could just improve my overall dancing and all my other friends that I could help them with their Pointe shoes. So I decided that I needed to start by learning about the shoes themselves. And so I researched the three top Pointe shoe companies, which are Grishko, Capezio, and Block, which they were the easiest ones to find and able to get information from. So that's why I chose them, and they're also really well-known ones too, and they're big corporations. And so I learned about the different styles and why they make so many different kinds of shoes and who would be interested in the type of shoe. Like a turner would, if somebody's doing a lot of turns in their dances, they would need a sturdy shoe that's good, that has a larger platform. So I have this right here, and this shows all the different parts of the shoe shaded in, and I'm going to be going through every single part and telling you what they are for. I thought it would be good to start with talking about the anatomy of the shoe. So here I have one of my Pointe shoes that I'm currently using. It's not dead yet, but it's not brand new, so this is about where you want to be whenever you're working with the shoe. So first we have the drawstring, which is right here, and this just tightens the elastic around your shoe. And then here we have the insole, which would be this part right here, and it lifts up. And then next we have the shank. The shank is on the inside of the shoe, and I actually had a shoe that was cut in half, but I was unable to get it back from the school. But on the inside, there's this hard part. You can hear it whenever I knock on it. And it's called the shank, and it's black, and it's the reason why the shoe doesn't bend. It's because that's what holds it together. And then next I have the outer sole on the back, and this is what the dancer would stand on, like if this was the table. And it kind of has an arch to it, so you can roll your foot back and forth, which isn't good. You want it to be flat down. So a flat sole is good, but you still want the outer sole to have an arch so that whenever you're up over your foot, it looks pretty like that. And then next we have the box. The box is kind of a broader term because it kind of goes all around, and it's just what really holds the shoe in, right here. And yeah, it's all around, and it's just this whole little cupped area. And then next we have the wings. The wings are the parts of the box that come all the way up here, and you can still feel it, except where I caved the shoe in, that's the wing. So it goes up and it gives the foot extra support so that they aren't flying out the sides, and it gives it a good curve so that your foot still feels supported. And then next we have the pleats. Actually, I don't have pleats on this shoe because it's a pleatless Pointe shoe, but the pleats would normally be right here, and it'd be a rippling in the fabric. Just it allows there to be traction. And I actually don't know why my shoe doesn't have pleats, but that's what would be used for gripping. And then next is the back seam, and then this is just structurally for the shoe, so that the shoe isn't falling apart and it has some structure to it. It's in the back. It doesn't do much, it's just there. And then next is the waist seam. The waist seam on the side is also for structure, and it just stays there as well. It's not for much, it's just to hold the fabrics together. And then the heel section is the part between the back seam and the waist seam, and this is just the satin material. And it's really soft, so that your heel isn't getting all these blisters, even though we still get blisters a lot. Then next we have the vamp. And then this is really important because there's lots of different sizes for vamps. And this is the vamp right here. It's this part on the front of the box. And you can see that how the vamp kind of goes up on an incline. Some people like it to go up more. Some people like a flat vamp as well. So there's many different kinds of vamps out there. And the lengths. I have a pretty short vamp. And then lastly, we have the platform, which is on the bottom of the box. This is where the floor meets, the shoe and the floor meet, and it stands like this. So whenever they're turning, they're right over top of their platforms. And the goal is to always be over top of your platform if you're not all the way down. So that would be the anatomy of the shoe. Oh yeah, and we also have ribbons to keep the shoe on your foot, and then there's also this elastic to keep the back heel section from popping off. So now I'm going to be talking about what a point shoe fitter looks for whenever they're fitting a client. So for this part of my project, I reached out to a place nearby. It's like a local shop, and it's called Tutu, and they do really good point shoe fittings, and I've never heard a complaint about how they fit their point shoes, so I figured they were a great business to ask. So the first thing she said she does is she looks at toe shape, because I have more of like not like it goes like a diamond, as where it's like that, but then some people have more square because their big toe is longer than the second toe, but then some people like me who has the second toe as their longer toe would need a shoe like this one. And everybody's toes shapes are different, so of course it would look different. And that's the first thing they look at, and they rule out a bunch of different styles of point shoes that way. And then next they look at your arch, so they have you do some tendus and some plies, which are just basic ballet moves to see how your arches will move in the shoe. So say you have a really flexible arch, you would need a stronger shoe so that your shoes aren't dying really quick, and so that your shoes aren't necessarily like folding over. And then somebody who has a pretty stiff arch and there's not much curve to it would need a sturdier shoe, but they would also need a really flexible outer sole. And then, so that's whenever they would look into 3/4 shanks, so that the shank of the shoe would only go down to here. And then that's where some people get 2-soled point shoes, where they have an outer sole right here and an outer sole right here, and right here is just the normal backing. And then since I have a really strong arch, I have a full shank and a full outer seam, or outer sole. And yes, they next look at the muscle structure to make sure it fits snug but not too tight. So they'll have you stand flat, and then they'll check the backing of the shoe to make sure that it's not super tight. But sometimes if it is a little bit looser, you can always use the elastic to tighten it. And that's actually what happened with this shoe, is I really liked this shoe and I really liked how it was working for my feet, but the back of it was just a little too big because they didn't have my correct sizing. So now I just tighten it to make sure that it fits still. If you can put your fingers in the back of the shoe, then it doesn't fit and you need to get a new shoe, and you need to start looking at different kinds of shoes. Next, they'll have you do releves, so that's whenever you're up on the back of the or the front of the platform, and then they'll see if the sides are gaping. So if the sides are going out and they're not snug to your foot, that's another big indicator that that shoe isn't for you. And if you do a plie, which is like your foot is bending like this, and the back of the heel gets really tight and it hurts and it's pulling, then that means the shoe is too small and you need to either get a bigger size or look at different styles of shoes. So that's all the things that they go through with the pointe shoe, but in the end, it's the dancer's decision on how they feel about the shoe and if they like the shoe or not. And then some people have different preferences on colors and on elastics and ribbons, because I personally like these kind of ribbons because they're not stretchy, they're really tight and secure, and they're really pretty. But then some people will choose for their ribbons to be made of the same material as the elastic on the shoe, which will make for a more flexible tied shoe. So whenever you're dancing, you never feel it being too tight because it's very stretchy and flexible. So yes, that's the pointe shoe fittings. I'm really happy with how my scenario turned out, and I feel like I learned a lot from it, and it's stuff that I can use in my real life. I'm really bummed though that I wasn't able to get my shoe and be able to show everyone what I'd worked on, because I had colored a pointe shoe so that whenever I was explaining all the parts of it, you could color coordinate it instead of me having to show you like this. And I wish that I could have gotten to see everyone in person and be able to answer all the questions in real time. And that's all. Thank you for watching.